The next Supervive playtest is scheduled for August 1st, or if you're watching this video on the day it's released, today. What's poppin' everyone, it's your boy Levi, and here are the 5 best hunters you can try out if you're new to the playtest. Number 1, Zeph. Of course I'm going to start off with Zeph. I think it makes the most sense to recommend the character that helped me learn the game the most. Zeph is a playmaking support character that specializes in team mobility and providing some extra damage in a comp. Zeph plays the backline and you'll want to be constantly moving, looking for angles to not only hit multiple enemies at a time with your AoE spells, but also get multiple heals off on your teammates. Zeph's healing ability passes through all units in a line. With good positioning, you can get a consistent 2 and 3 teammate heal. Your E grenade and ultimate both go over walls, so don't be afraid to sacrifice your left clicks by using natural cover. You can still provide to a fight from over a wall. Zeph's got a lot of strengths, including team mobility. His shift tornado allows him to launch himself in a direction. This affects all teammates he touches as well, being able to send them into a fight or provide some extra escape for his team. A tip I can give with this ability is to use this ability to cover gaps in the abyss when escaping a team. The launch will give your team some extra distance without having to pull out your glider and worry about getting spiked. Zeph, however, struggles when getting dove. While he has decent self-heal through his bomb and tornado, having to use those abilities on himself hinders his additional damage in a fight. While not being prone to being picked off before a fight begins, Zeph can be pushed out of a fight fairly easily, especially if the pilot panic tornadoes away. Overall, Zeph isn't too difficult to pilot. He's a little bit more challenging than Aluna, but way more positional forgiveness than Oath. If you want a jack of all trades support between utility and damage and healing, pick Zeph. He also got quite a few nice buffs coming this playtest. Next up is Joule. Joule excels in high mobility with her resetting dashes and keeps pressure on enemy carries. Her playstyle revolves around looking for enemies that group up in a clump and hitting them with devastating bursts. By using her dashes strategically, she puts a lot of pressure on the enemy team, constantly looking for engage angles. As mentioned, Joule's strength is in her mobility, and not only from an engage angle, but from an evade angle as well. It's incredibly hard to pin a Joule down, let alone keep her down long enough to pick off. A diving burst character like her should be weak and neutral, right? Wrong. She's also got some poke tools in her kit. While not the best tools in her kit, her poke spells aren't meant to do massive damage. Joule uses her poke tools so that she can manipulate enemies into grouping up into clusters. She can step up to the front line, throw some poke at a target, and once they clump together, she jumps on their back line. If she gets engaged on, she can use her knockback javelin to help disengage and keep targets off of her. Joule's weak if you never pull the trigger with her. While her burst damage is the best in clumps of enemies, don't wait until the fight's over for the perfect engage. When playing against her, forcing her to engage on one player and looking to burst her down after she uses her mobility tools is the best way of dealing with her. A good controller or support character can bait her into an engage and trap her in. She can be a little difficult compared to most of the other straightforward carry characters, so I give her a try if you don't mind a mechanically challenging character. And speaking of controllers, next up is Celeste. Celeste is a versatile controller, being able to provide damage, control the flow of a fight, and disengage against divers. Due to her usefulness of her kit, she can be a threat in any comp. Despite fitting the control mage playstyle, Celeste is very underrated in absorbing damage. Being a disruptor and invulnerability ultimate allows her to absorb the initial burst in a fight and take big enemy cooldowns for her team. While Celeste isn't a solo carry by any means, she's a master of manipulating spaces, similar to Joule. Between her wall ability and her AoE ultimate, Celeste is best to set up for another carry. Use your spatial abilities to push enemies around for teammates to follow up on. She can also create freeze zones that slow enemies, make it even easier for your team to engage. Celeste isn't the most difficult hunter in the game, but she's not the easiest either. Quite often on this channel I talk about characters who you need a good sense of the game to play rather than just good mechanics, and I think Celeste fits into that group. Her abilities are straightforward, yet mastering her versatility of which abilities to use in which scenarios leads to a higher skill ceiling for those who decide to play her. I still think she's a great choice for both new and experienced players, looking to have a reliable and impactful presence in the game. Moving on to Kingpin, his playstyle revolves around his biggest strength, and that's his hook. Kingpin has the ability to pick off an enemy before the fight even begins. His hook can secure picks and disrupt enemies. It even goes through walls. Kingpin can also pull allied wisp, the name for downed bodies that have been knocked. Pull a teammate wisp back to safety and start resing them in a safe location. This gives him a nice bit of offense and support utility in one ability. The rest of his kit reflects a bruiser skirmishing playstyle. I know Dunmere has expressed his views that it lacks versatility and reliability compared to other characters, but in lower elos and when learning the game, getting big slams on opponents can really turn a fight. He's also more abusable in the lower elos before you learn the game. If you don't know what Kingpin does, he's going to pick you off before the fight begins. Kingpin's biggest weakness has been the evolution of Supervive. Back in the day, characters didn't have as much mobility as they do now, and picking off a target was way easier. Now, where most characters have a decent dash, and a lot of them have even better dashes, you have to be selective of what target you're going to pull. And finally, let's talk about Brall. My apologies for last video, I called him Ronin. That was his old name. If there's a character that you want to single-handedly carry a game with, this is the one one to do it with. Elite in an isolated 1v1, I've seen good Brawl players 1v2, 1v3, and borderline 1v4 against the right comps, even at the highest level. Brall is a highly mobile, damage-dealing hunter. He excels in overpowering offense, but shouldn't be underestimated defensively either. You know how every game has that infinite dashes character meme? For Supervive, it's Brall. With 3 resetting dashes and a tethered grab, if Brall has you in his sights as a target, it's incredibly tough to get away from him. Brall excels in a lockdown scenario, equipped with both a stun and a slow. He also has an AoE ability with anti-heal to stop healers from keeping his target alive. And as I mentioned on the defensive side, Brall is also decent. Equipped with self-heals and an attack speed steroid and a cooldown reduction steroid, he can sustain himself while diving a backline. So does a character like this have any weaknesses really? A few. As a character, Brall is weak and neutral. With no poke spells, your only play is to commit to a fight. You're a very all or nothing character. If you have poking teammates, you can wait for them to willow down enemies and then dive onto a target as they get low. But if your team is getting out-poked, it's an uphill climb for the fight. And for the pilot, Brall has a weakness if you don't play aggressive enough. Because of his all or nothing playstyle, you need to be confident with your engages, knowing when your self-heal is going to sustain you to get enough kills. You need to execute targets quickly, creating advantageous scenarios for your team. Playing too passive, and you might as well pick one of the longer range characters like Shrike or Myth to be more effective. 5 different characters with 5 different playstyles to try out this playtest. But in addition to knowing the hunters of Supervive, you'll want to know to improve your macro on the game as well. Click or tap the screen now and you'll be taken to my video of me trying Supervive as a complete beginner. If you're new to this playtest, maybe consider subscribing so we can go on a journey together to learn the game.